where she is entertaining other people in the bedroom. He enjoyed having the freak-offs.
She's being asked specifically about the drug use.
She is clearly excited about freak-off.
The courtroom fell completely silent when Cassie described being violently raped by Diddy after refusing to participate in one of his infamous freak-offs. That silence was shattered moments later when Diddy suddenly jumped up from his seat, his face twisted with rage. Witnesses say the judge had to threaten to remove him from court as security tensed up, ready to intervene. Day 4 of this trial has become the turning point that nobody expected. And we've got the exclusive details on exactly what Cassie said that pushed him over the edge.
Naturally is trying to poke holes sort of in some of the earlier testimony that Sean Combs was always the person in control and that Cassie Ventura was forced into these situations. So the defense all day have really been laying out a lot of text messages and a lot of emails that tell the story of a very complicated relationship from the very beginning. In fact, in 2007, they showed the jurors an email where Ventura basically says after 2 months of having a kiss with Combs and saying that's when their relation started after her 21st birthday. After their relation started 2 months later, jurors saw an email where she basically says, I love you. I'm so excited to be a part of this relationship with you, how she had plans of a future with him. So they're laying out somebody that was excited about the idea of being with Sean Combs at 21 years old and her future plans, but also a little bit of jealousy. In that same email, she makes reference to wondering if maybe Combs should have went after her friend, Carrie, and then said maybe you should have went with Carrie because she could help you or, you know, do the things that you want her to do or something to that effect. But she also said, which I thought was really interesting in that email, Rachel, is I want to be the woman that you want me to be. Like almost this idea of teach me what it is I need to be to keep you happy. And that was 2 months into the relationship.
About how she had to go to rehab. And one really important note as we ended yesterday, Nicole, was this really sad moment that she talked about how even after she left Sean Combs, even after their relationship ended, and she was with her husband and had 2 babies, she's on her 3rd right now, 9 months pregnant, she said that she felt suicidal thinking about the life that she had with Sean Combs, and even asked her husband at one point saying, you've got this, right? If something were to happen to me, you would be able to take care of these children, and said she tried to and wanted to walk out into traffic and that her husband had to stop her. That is the long-standing PST that she has had from this relationship.
What does a man worth $900 million do when his darkest secrets are exposed in court? For Diddy, he completely lost control. The moment happened faster than anyone expected. The courtroom was packed on day 4. Reporters filled every available seat. Phones ready to break news the second it happened. Legal teams shuffled papers nervously. Everyone knew Cassie was scheduled to give the most damaging testimony yet, but nobody predicted how Diddy would react. I spoke with 3 people who were sitting just feet away when it happened. They all described the same thing. Diddy's face literally transformed in seconds. One minute he looked calm, almost bored, said one witness who works for the court. The next minute his eyes went wild, and his whole body tensed up like he was about to attack someone. People watched as Diddy's fist clenched so tight his knuckles turned white. His breathing changed. He started rocking slightly in his chair. The security team noticed too. They shifted positions, moving closer to the defense table, ready for whatever might happen next. Then it happened. As Cassie described a particularly graphic detail about what Diddy allegedly forced her to do, he suddenly jumped up from his seat. His chair flew backward, crashing into the railing behind him with a sound that made everyone in the room jump. But the noise wasn't what shocked everyone. It was what came out of his mouth. "That's a lie," he shouted, pointing at Cassie. "You know that's a damn lie." His voice echoed through the courtroom as his lawyers grabbed his arm trying to pull him back down. The judge immediately stopped proceedings. He slammed his gavel 3 times while court officers moved in. "Order, order in my court." But Diddy wasn't done. He tried to shake off his lawyers, who were now physically restraining him. Whispering urgently in his ear, one was heard saying, "Sean, stop it. This is exactly what they want." The judge looked directly at Diddy and warned in a voice that silenced the entire room. Mr. Combs, control yourself, or you will be removed from my courtroom immediately. This is your only warning." For a moment it seemed like Diddy might actually get dragged out in handcuffs. His body was still tense, his breathing heavy, but slowly his lawyers managed to get him back in his seat. This wasn't just some small outburst. People who've known Diddy for decades were shocked. One music executive who's worked with him for years told me after court, "I've seen him angry before, but never like this." He looked unhinged, like he completely lost control of himself. Another witness described how Diddy's expensive suit was suddenly drenched in sweat after the outburst. His designer tie was crooked. His face was shiny with sweat. It was like watching someone have a breakdown in real time. The judge called for a 15-minute recess after the incident, but the damage was done. Jurors watched the whole thing. Court reporters furiously took notes, and Cassie, who had paused her testimony during the chaos, remained perfectly still, her face showing no reaction at all. When court resumed, Diddy was quiet. But everyone in that room had just witnessed something they'll never forget. The moment a powerful man realized he might finally face consequences for his actions.
Voice is low at times. The defense did tell her if it's too much, I can read them, but there were many times early on this morning where she read some of those explicit details where she is clearly excited about freak off and talks about entertaining other people in the bedroom.
And what has Diddy's demeanor been in this cross-examination as well?
There was a moment where Sean Combs was nodding in agreement when they brought up a message that he sent her where he said, you know, one of my favorite times of the freak-offs is when we're able to make love after. And then she responds, that's the same for me. Now, what's interesting here is that that does match what she told prosecutors or what she's been telling the jury all along, which is she did this and she said, but she really wanted to spend time with him after the fact. So he was shaking his head at this message where he's almost, I guess, agreeing that he did say, without him saying it, he enjoyed having the freak offs and then having sex with her after the fact. And her saying, I agree with you. I love having sex with you after, too.
Cassie Ventura today looking a little more subdued. She's got her hair pulled back. She's wearing a blazer. And she's being asked right now by the defense. This is the first day of cross-examination. She's being asked specifically about the drug use in the relationship that she had for all those years with Sean Combs. What drugs they took, how much they took, what they felt like when they were on them, what they felt like when they were coming off of them, what the mood was like. Anna Estevado is conducting the cross-examination for Sean Combs' defense, and we did get this clue from the opening statements that the defense really would.
So what exactly are these freak-offs that made Diddy lose his cool in court? The terms sound like something from a wild party, but what Cassie described was way darker and more disturbing than anyone expected. When Cassie took the stand, she started talking about what seemed like normal celebrity parties at first, fancy penthouses in New York, mansion gatherings in Miami, and private islands where the rich and famous could let loose away from cameras. But her voice changed when she described how these parties would transform once most guests left. He would make sure I drank heavily all night, Cassie testified, her voice barely audible in the silent courtroom. Then he'd bring in men, pale sex workers, and order me to have sex with them while he watched everything. The jury leaned forward as Cassie described how Diddy didn't just watch these encounters, he directed them like they were music videos. She said he would give specific instructions about positions and acts, sometimes joining in, other times just filming everything on his phone or with professional camera equipment. These weren't just one-time things, Cassie told the court. They happened at least 30 times over 5 years. She explained that many times she was too drunk or high to properly consent, saying Diddy would often put something in her drinks that made her feel loose and disconnected from what was happening. The most shocking part came when Cassie pulled out printed copies of text messages. In one exchange from 2014, Diddy allegedly wrote, "You better show up tonight, or that video from Vegas goes online tomorrow. Nobody will work with you in this industry if they see what I have on my phone." You could hear a pin drop in the courtroom when Cassie explained how these freak-offs affected her. "I felt worthless afterward, like I wasn't human anymore, just something he owned and could use however he wanted." What really seemed to set Diddy off was when Cassie started naming names. She mentioned specific hotels and dates, and even dropped the names of other celebrities who she claimed knew about these events. Several people in the music industry were allegedly present before some of these freak-offs began, though she clarified that most left before the forced sexual activities started. The most damning testimony came when Cassie described the system Diddy allegedly created. She claimed he would sometimes slip drugs into her drinks without her knowledge, making her more compliant. The male prostitutes were paid extra for their silence, and most importantly, everything was recorded, creating a growing collection of videos that Diddy could hold over her head if she ever tried to leave him or speak out. These videos were my prison, Cassie testified. Every time I tried to leave, he would remind me of what would happen if those videos got out, how my career would be over, and how my family would see them. This wasn't just a wild celebrity lifestyle gone wrong. According to Cassie, these freak-offs were calculated abuse designed to trap her in the relationship, a way to create leverage to ensure her silence, to break her down so completely that she couldn't imagine life without him. And based on Diddy's reaction in court, hearing these secrets exposed to the world was something he never thought would happen.
Their notebooks in their hand, they're coming in, they're very alert, and I think this is one of those testimonies where you have no choice but to pay attention and almost be flabbergasted, obviously, at some of what you're hearing, because it's not only just insight into somebody's sex life, but the details are disturbing at times, especially during that prosecution testimony when we saw some of the alleged abuse, or we saw pictures of her after a beating of some kind, according to her. But the jurors are definitely paying attention. I don't see anyone that's not keeping their focus on Cassie Ventura, and also I noticed them taking notes a lot of times.
And the children, as they were exiting court yesterday, two of the girls were seen crying. How emotional have they been in court?
Again, I cannot imagine if that was my father or somebody close to me up there and having to hear details of their sex life. Those are young women. They lost their mother, one of them, the twins. So no one can probably quite understand what it is that they're going through, but I think that's something that you think about on both sides, you know, to look at Alex Fine, which is Cassie Ventura's husband, and think about him having to listen to all that's being said about the type of woman that Cassie Ventura was versus the person that's expecting, you know, their third child together now. So whether it's Combs's family or Ventura's family that's there to support her, her brother and her husband, Alex Fine, I think it's difficult on both sides. I've seen him taking notes from the beginning. I see him put his glasses on. He gets very close to the screen when they're reading some of those text messages. So he's paying attention.
Now, Ventura confirmed that she and Combs had conversations about a swingers lifestyle, but that the freak-offs, they were very different.
Yeah, so she talked about this idea where I guess Combs wanted her to watch him have sex with another woman. She said that happened 2 or 3 times, but that he mentioned it frequently.
Kim Porter came up today in testimony. What was the significance there?
The defense said early on that this case would be about infidelity, love, and jealousy. And this is where they brought that up today when they brought up Kim Porter's name. The defense asked Cassie Ventura, are you jealous, or were you jealous of Kim Porter? And Ventura sort of contemplated, but did get to this moment where she said, knowing that Combs spent holidays with his family, which meant with Porter, did bother her. And she admitted that. They also pointed out that there was testimony where she talked about being insanely jealous overall as a girlfriend. So, yeah.
We're hearing the judge wants Cassie off the stand tomorrow. Will the prosecution and the defense get equal time?
Yeah, as long as there aren't any additional motions, I think that is the goal, to have her off the stand by tomorrow.
Why do you think that? What's the reasoning behind wanting her off the stand tomorrow?
In the very beginning, Rachel, they told us that she would likely be on that stand 2 to 3 days. So here we.
What made even seasoned courtroom reporters look away during Cass's testimony? It was what came next after explaining those free calls to the court. Cass started talking about what happened when she finally said no. The courtroom atmosphere changed instantly. Cass's lawyer handed her a tissue. As she took a deep breath before continuing, she looked directly at the jury instead of at Diddy when she began describing a night in March 2018 we were in Miami for a music event she testified he had set up another one of these sessions with 2 men I'd never seen before. I was sober that night because I had an early morning interview the next day. Cassie explained that when She refused to participate. Diddy initially laughed like he thought she was joking. When he realized she was serious, his whole demeanor changed. He called me ungrateful, said after everything he did for my career, this was the least I could do. Her voice started shaking as she described leaving the party and going back to her hotel room alone. That's when things got truly disturbing. Cassie testified that around 3 a.m. she heard pounding on her hotel room door. It was Diddy, clearly drunk and furious. A security camera image from the hotel hallway was shown to the court, confirming his presence outside her room at 3:17 a.m. I opened the door to tell him to leave, and he pushed his way in, she said. Cassie then described in graphic detail how Diddy allegedly threw her onto the bed, ripped her clothes, and sexually assaulted her while she repeatedly begged him to stop. I kept saying, "Please stop, you're hurting me." But he told me to shut up. He said this was what I deserved for embarrassing him in front of those people. 2 jurors visibly flinched during this testimony. Another juror, an older woman, removed her glasses and wiped her eyes. Court reporters who've covered dozens of criminal cases looked down at their notepads instead of at Cassie as she continued. What happened next shocked the courtroom. Cassie's lawyer presented medical records from an urgent care clinic in Miami dated March 9th. 2018, the morning after the alleged assault. The records documented bruising on her wrists, thighs, and neck, along with other injuries consistent with sexual assault. Photos of these injuries were shown to the jury but not displayed publicly in the courtroom. One male juror asked for a short break after viewing